Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission is looking closely at just one source, but it's a big one. It's a major book review covering Ayn Rand's novel from 1943, The Fountainhead. We're aiming to pull out the key ideas about its themes, its structure, and, why it's still talked about.
Yeah, and it's not just about the story itself, it's really an intellectual dive, too.
Yeah.
Our source makes it clear right away that this book, well, it holds a pretty significant place.
Mm.
It's trying to lay out a whole moral viewpoint. The review calls the novel inspirational, logical, presenting these, like, high ideals Rand had about personality, self-confidence, freedom.
And the absolute center of that is the main character, Howard Rourke. He's
It,
the architect, right? And his whole story is the vehicle for Rand's individualism. The conflict is set up immediately in the review. It's the
yeah,
the absolute individual versus, well, society. Its expectations, its mediocrity.
right. That tension is everything in the book. The individual's conviction against the established way of doing things. So, as a reader, you're dropped into this world where compromise is always on the table, but for Rourke, he almost always rejects it.
Okay, let's really get into this character, Howard Rourke. The source describes him as freedom-loving, super ambitious, self-reliant, very principled. That sounds heroic, almost. But the review adds something crucial. Rourke never confronts the expectations of the established society. What's that about?
Ah, yeah, that's key. It means he's not out there protesting or trying to lead a movement, not in the usual sense. His approach is just creation and avoidance, maybe. He doesn't really fight society's expectations head on. He just operates on his own terms, completely separate, according to his own standards.
And those standards are tied to his work, not external validation. What's fascinating, the source stresses this, is that his motivation isn't fame or money, not even making the client happy necessarily. Rourke sees his architecture as a great art. And that art itself, the act of creating from his vision, that's what's more important than external success.
Exactly. And that idea holds up the whole moral framework of the novel. If the integrity of your own work is your highest value, then what other people think or what the market wants, it just doesn't matter as much. The source is pointing out how Rourke's dedication kind of disconnects him from the usual system of rewards and values. He's driven internally.
Okay, but it's not like this makes his life easy. The review doesn't paint it as a simple success story. It frames Rourke's life as a real struggle and dedication. It introduces complexity, right? About human nature, ambition. It's a tough road, even for someone so focused.
Definitely a struggle. And you see that through the other characters. The review mentions his opponents, Peterson and Kelvin. These guys aren't just villains, they represent conformity, the establishment figures who prefer mediocrity, derivative work. Their function is almost to push back against anything truly original, maybe not even out of pure malice, but because originality is unsettling to the collective.
The force is trying to pull him down. But then there are supporters, too. The review specifically highlights Dominique Franson. She's not just a love interest, is she? She's presented as someone who genuinely gets the uniqueness of his art, his ideals, maybe understands his kind of lonely dedication better than others.
Right. And it's that dynamic, the creator, the conformist, the champion, that really leads us into the philosophy.
Perfect segue. Let's talk about that philosophy. The source is very direct here. The first main feature listed, just one word, individualism.
Yeah, and it's individualism in a very specific Randian sense,
Mm.
not just a political label. The Fountainhead is called a symbol of the philosophy of individualism. And what that means, practically, according to the review, is this intense focus on self-reliance, on the sovereignty of your own mind. The idea that the individual consciousness is the source of all achievement, all moral worth.
Okay, hearing that, it could sound quite arrogant, couldn't it? This absolute self-reliance. Does the review touch on the potential downsides, like maybe selfishness?
Well, that's where the struggle and dedication part comes back in, I think. The source seems to frame it differently.
Right.
Rourke's story isn't just about ego. It's presented as a kind of model, a very demanding one. It encourages people to chase their dreams, yes, but also to fight for truth despite facing innumerable difficulties.
So the fight isn't necessarily against other people. It's against the obstacles to truth and originality.
That seems to be the idea. The individualism here demands you stick to your beliefs no matter what. The sheer difficulty of doing that is what supposedly separates real dedication from just being self-serving. It highlights that this philosophy isn't supposed to be easy. It takes huge effort to maintain your convictions when everything pushes against you.
Right. Connecting that back, it makes the novel more than just one guy's story. The source calls it a powerful perspective, something Ayn Rand uses to try and define, for the reader, what the true ideals of life are. It turns a story about building design into, well, an ethical statement.
Exactly. It's like an intellectual argument wrapped in a novel, which makes the way it's written pretty important too.
Good point. If the ideas are that intense, that challenging, how does Rand keep you reading? How does she make you feel the intensity? Does the review say anything about the writing itself, the prose?
It does, yeah. It talks about Rand's writing style. It mentions a subtle perfection in the language and the dialogue. Apparently, she manages to blend heavy intellectual ideas with a kind of literary beauty. It's not just a dry philosophical text, it's crafted.
And that blend must be key because the dialogue itself, the source says it's deep, intense, thoughtful. Sounds like characters aren't just chatting, they're often making big philosophical points, right? Almost like delivering manifestos.
That's a good way to put it. And that style supports the novel's main conflict. The struggle isn't just between people, it's intellectual. It's the characters against the bigger enemy, the system opposing faith and convictions. The system itself is kind of the main antagonist, more than any one person.
And that system shows up as institutional societal pressures. So we're talking about things like schools, established companies, critics, the parts of society that reward conformity and punish being different. Rourke is essentially fighting that whole structure.
Yeah, and that exploration conviction versus institutional pressure, that's what the source suggests gives the book its lasting impact, why it's called thought-provoking. It makes you, the listener, think about your own choices. Are they truly yours, or are they shaped by what the world expects?
It definitely sounds like a demanding read, both the ideas and maybe the commitment needed to stick with it. So let's wrap up our look at this source. What's the final takeaway for someone thinking about reading The Fountainhead today?
Well, the recommendation in the review is pretty specific. It says The Fountainhead is for any reading enthusiast, sure, but especially for those who want to set big goals in their own lives. Rourke's journey is shown as this ultimate example of striving towards your own defined success, where the struggle is actually part of the achievement.
That relentless self-belief, the dedication, refusing to compromise. It's presented as a unique kind of inspiration. The source suggests Rand's intellectual viewpoint, as laid out here, makes it a good pick if you're looking for, maybe, a blueprint for ambition, principled action.
Which leads us to a final thought, something to chew on. Building from the source's focus on that principled creation aspect. If the whole book hinges on individual vision winning out over collective pressure, here's the challenge. How does someone today, trying to apply lessons from Rourke's dedication to his art and ideals, make sure they're pursuing genuine principled creation? Like the source says, Rand champions Vess, and not just, using this extreme individualism as an excuse for purely self-serving actions. That difference seems pretty crucial to consider.